Welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is David Mekeel. I'm a reporter with the Reading Eagle, and I'm joined here today by Jack Williams with the Berks Coalition to End Homelessness and Melissa DeMotta with Pennsylvania Education for Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness. And we're here today to chat a little bit about homelessness in Berks County. This conversation stems from a series that ran in the Reading Eagle last month called No Place to Call Home, and we got quite a bit of reader reaction about the series. So we decided to continue the conversation here with the help of BCTV, and so I'd like to start a little bit talking kind of in general terms about homelessness in Berks County, and I'll start with you, Jack. Can you talk a little bit about the state of homelessness in Berks, how, the scope of the problem, what the problem looks like here in Berks?
Okay. Well, as the article called proper attention to, homelessness in Berks County, and homelessness anywhere, but especially in Berks County, has many different levels, many different facets, many different layers. And there's no simple answer, simple solution. It's just a growing problem and a concern. And it reaches almost every single different facet that homelessness will reach in any city, whether it's homeless youth or whether it's homeless elderly, homeless families. And we're not here to be the judge. We're here to be the help. So the concerns and the situational poverty in the city of Reading, the residents in the rural community. What we do is we're the Coalition to End Homelessness. So we are basically the COC, and what that means is that the federal government has said that in Berks County, you should be the thought leaders. You should be in the conversation with all the different facets, with all the different levels, with all the different issues. Where are there opportunities to help? Where are there opportunities that are being missed?
Okay, and you work mostly with youth and students, and homelessness. Some of the definitions are a little bit different for youth than for older adults. Talk a little bit about kind of that difference and what homelessness looks like for students, for youth.
Sure. So our program is, our offices are out of the Berks County Intermediate Unit, but our program is contracted through the Department of Education. And our job is to work with the school districts, the families, the students, community agencies to break down any type of barriers to education for students who are in a displaced situation. So if their housing is chaotic, it mainly means that their education does not have to be. So if they're moving from one area to another area, they can still attend their same school district, they can still go to the same classroom, they can still see the same students and friends, and hopefully because of that, they won't fall behind educationally. So because of this, that we're focused on the education aspect, there are two different definitions of homelessness. Our definition is more broad than the HUD definition. Under the education, a homeless student could be somebody, well, first of all, it's somebody that an event should have occurred, needed to occur for that student to lose their home. So it could be a fire, an eviction, financial distress, medical problems, domestic violence, there's a vast number of reasons and events that occur for people to lose their home. So an event would need to happen, and then they would be that they lost their home, but then they could end up being in a hotel or a motel. They could be doubled up, which is something that does not come under the HUD definition of homelessness. And doubled up means that they're sharing the housing of another family. It could be family or friends or something like that. They went to that place to live because they lost their home. And that is probably one of the biggest differences between our two definitions. And it's also the vast number of students are in that type of situation, in doubled up situation. So probably about 75% of the students that we are dealing with are in a doubled up situation. But these kids could also be, they could be unsheltered. We have families that are in cars or in tents. They may be living in a campground temporarily. Any of those situations would come under our definition of homelessness.
And for some of those definitions, it seems that there are things that people might not typically think of as traditionally homeless. And also for homeless adults, something that struck me doing this series was the numbers and kind of the perception of who's homeless and where homeless people are. I mean, we spoke at great length about, yes, there is a concentration of homelessness in the city, but it hits all parts of Berks County. So can you talk a little bit about kind of like the hidden nature of homelessness? We both discussed, I think, in doing this story, about how a lot of people in Berks County probably don't understand the scope of the problem. It's not something you necessarily see. So can you talk a little bit about that, about how it can be a little difficult to understand the problem if you're not dealing with it every day as you are?
Well, the perception is, or the stereotype is that person that's on the street corner or living on or top of the heating grate on downtown city, and that stereotype is just wrong. Misplaced individuals can be and are in a lot of different places. They're living in their cars. They're living in their cars with a family. They're living in their cars with children. They're placing themselves in tents or under bridges or hidden from everyday sight. They're doubling up. Because of our coordinated entry system, which means that almost everyone entering a homeless situation is an adult that reports to call 211, calling in a United Way number, calling 211 saying, hey, I need help, I'm homeless, or I'm about to be homeless. We see an awful lot of those stories. We do triage. What happens? Where are you going? What's the best service to connect you with? And the stories are so sad because there are people that are living in sheds. There are community members, residents that leave their sheds open so that the family can be outside of the rain or outside of the snow or outside of even the heat in the summertime. It's not always as obvious as we think or as we see on TV or as we see in the movies. And obviously the subsector homeless youth is even more hidden because of a tremendous amount of reasons that Melissa can expand on.
Yeah, and something that really struck me in doing this story are the numbers for the homeless youth. As I was doing the story, new numbers came out, and in Berks County it was over 2,000, if I'm not.
It's over 2,200.
Over 2,200
identified in Berks.
Wow, and
Yes.
To me that was amazing.
That's identified.
That's identified, and I had
That's
no
the
idea.
key, yeah.
So talk about some of the hurdles for. I know we talked about identifying homeless youth. Talk about some of the hurdles with that, because I know a lot of times if a kid is homeless, they don't necessarily want to be found out as homeless. So talk a little bit about that.
That is one of our biggest issues with getting help for these families is identification. We spend a tremendous amount of time educating personnel in school districts and community agencies in how to identify these families, because they do not want to come out, most of them do not want to come out and ask for assistance. And they have some good reasons. They have a lot of fears. They have a fear that they'll have to leave wherever they are living because they're not supposed to be there. They have a fear that their children could be taken away because they don't have a home of their own. Kids who are on their own and homeless, the unaccompanied youth, they are probably the most secretive population because they don't want to be returned home. They left for some reason. They may say they left because they're not getting along with their parents, but we don't know what's going on in that home. And they leave for many reasons. There can be abuse in the home, there can be drug use in the home, and they don't want to go back there. And they're afraid that if they come forward and talk to school personnel about what's going on, that they will have to come forward. Other reasons that we have a hard time identifying is people may get doubled up with somebody else in a different school district, and they don't understand the law that if they are homeless and they're living outside the school district, they can keep their child in the school where the child attends. They can stay in their home school, and they don't understand that. So they fear that if they come forward, they're going to have to take their child out of school and enroll them in another school district. And those are just a few of the reasons, but yeah, identification is very difficult.
As I said at the beginning, we got quite a bit of reader response to this series, and a lot of it was people wanting to know what they can do to help. So when it comes to homeless students and identifying homeless students, what should someone do if someone they know or one of their kids' friends, they have suspicions that something is going on. Should they contact you, the school? What's the process?
There's a couple of different processes they can take. One, they're more than welcome to call my office, and at the BCIU they can just call the direct number and ask for the homeless program, and they would be directed to our program. And we can take down that information and we can get in touch with the school district. Every school district under the law has to have a homeless liaison, and that person is educated in the homeless law and what the rights are for these families, and they're also educated in what the resources are in the community. So if they do not want to come to the BCIU and give us a call, they can call the school district and simply ask for the homeless liaison in that school district and ask to get that person some assistance.
Okay. Sticking with the reader-generated question theme, we did reach out to our readers to get specific questions for this conversation here, so I think we'll start with a couple of those. And this one kind of works with the education aspect. Someone was curious about the foster care system and how that plays a role. So can you talk a little bit about foster care? I know with unaccompanied youth, a lot of times there could be fear of being placed in the foster care, and I think you also mentioned that kids can age out of the foster care system. Can you speak a little bit about?
Yes. So if you're looking at the unaccompanied homeless youth, if you're looking at unaccompanied homeless youth, are youth who are not in physical custody of a parent or guardian. They're on their own. They've left their home for some reason. And as I was saying earlier, they are the most secretive population because they are afraid of being put into the system. They could have been in the system in the past as far as foster care is concerned, and they may not want to be put back into that system, so they often won't come forward to say what their circumstances are and won't seek assistance. If you're looking at the child who is in the foster care system, they have an option to opt out at age 18. In Pennsylvania, they can stay in until they're 21. However, they need to meet certain requirements to do that. Usually they need to be in school or they need to have a job. There's a variety of requirements to stay until they're 21. But even if they meet those requirements, a lot of these kids are opting out at 18 for a variety of reasons. They may just be sick of being in the system. They may not have made too many connections in the foster care system. They may not be with a family that they want to stay with, and other kids may want to reconnect with their natural family. So they decide to opt out of the foster care, and frequently those kids who do that at age 18 are not ready, and they end up in a homeless situation.
Okay. Jack, a reader question for you. We kind of discussed this a little bit in the series when we were talking about possible projects, what can be done in the future. Someone suggested using abandoned properties or warehouses and converting them into homeless shelters or something like that. Talk about some of those ideas about projects. I know you're a big fan of saying that something big. We need a big effort to really make an impact. Talk a little bit about those kind of ideas.
Okay. Well, first of all, you have to start with the fact that Berks County is a very, very giving and caring community. There are many organizations. The BCAU and the Homeless Youth Program is one of them. These are whether it's Op House or whether it's Safe Berks or whether it's the Hope Rescue Mission or whether even from in a more global perspective, the United Way. These are organizations led by, staffed by people that care, that want to be a part of the answer and part of the solution. And I do believe that the reason I'm in place here is to try to champion the fact that we should be leaders in this. We should at some point in time say Berks County and the city of Reading is our model, is a model community for fighting homelessness. And to do that, there are best practices being done all around the country that we could incorporate. We don't have to start them from scratch. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to look at the model and say this is something we can do. Whether it be a safe parking lot, or there be a community of homeless shelters or homeless huts, small little homeless facilities, or whether it be conversion of a property that's given, donated, and converted to more of a shelter or transitional or even permanent supportive housing. So one of the reactions that I've received from the series of newspaper articles is people have gotten that attention, and that seed has been planted, and there are people moving in certain directions, which is tremendously encouraging for me and exciting that we're not necessarily going to wait for government approval. Sorry, city of government, but that we can go to the private sector. The one message that if you hear nothing else besides this is that from an individual standpoint, or from a company, or from a civic group, whether it's a Rotary Club or a Lions Club or a Boy Scout Club, is find the organization that you most identify with, whether it's homeless youth in the high schools, or whether it's domestic violence victims, or whether it's substance abuse victims, or whether it's somebody coming out of incarceration. Find that niche that rings to your heart, and then say, let's be part of that answer in that subset. Let's go get involved. Let's go find out. Let's go talk to these people. Let's see what projects are on their board. Let's see where their financial needs are. Let's see what they're trying to champion. Become a part of it. I do believe there's a movement. I do believe that it's started. I do believe that the articles have pushed that movement forward, and I just hope that momentum continues.
Now, for the organizations that are dealing with this, what is the biggest need? Is it funding? Is it manpower? I know we were chatting a little bit just prior to this about some, funding constraints that you guys sometimes face. Is that the biggest need? Is funding?
Go ahead.
I think it's all of the above.
It's all of the above.
But I really am. I'm a very positive outlook on this. I do believe that if we give the connection piece, say it be a safe parking lot, let's start there, and we need X amount of dollars from outside of public funding to be able to retrofit, communicate it, open it up, put some electric there, put some security there. I believe that the Berks County community would fully support it and fund it, and it wouldn't be a problem. It's just finding the place, finding the home for it, finding the location, and then saying this is the starting date and this is what we need. And it's just that communication point of, here is the project, here's how you can help, here's the opportunity and the invitation to partner.
So people who really do have a heart to help, who read this and were kind of touched by some of the stories, your suggestion would be to find an agency, that is dealing with whatever particularly, is of interest to you, whether it's youth or whether it's, adults or whatever, and to contact them and see what they need, and to ask the questions. Do you need funding? Do you need assistance? Do you need
As far as the youth are concerned, they're always welcome to call our office. We work with every school district, not just in this county, but in 5 others. And a lot of these school districts are trying to help these families with resources. They're trying to give them hygiene supplies, food, school supplies, some of the basic necessities. They've opened closets and that type of thing. If there are people out there that want to help with that, they can contact us, and we can either put them in contact with a particular school district if that's what they want. If they want to donate generally, we can pass those supplies out. We are always running programs that need some funding help from time to time, and if they're interested in funding some of the youth programs that we run, they can always, once again, they can contact our office, and we can tell them what direction to go with that.
Okay. Another reader question, and this is one that we actually got quite a bit of feedback on. We did a story about a woman who actually met through you, who isn't homeless yet, but is on the brink. She had some serious medical issues, and she's now behind on her mortgage and her bills, and very real, and she is no longer able to work, very real threat of becoming homeless. And a lot of people, I think, were very struck by that, because I think it hit close to home for a lot of people. In your experience, do you come across a lot of people who are, one horrible medical diagnosis away? Is that something that's common, or is her story unique? Or
Absolutely, it's just another subset of the population, and in her situation, it calls attention to the fact that there are government programs, whether city, state, county, federal, to help with rental assistance or rapid rehousing of someone that might have just been evicted, but there's very little available for someone that owns a home with a mortgage assistance. And if you've exhausted the avenues of trying to get your mortgage redone or reclassified, or I forget what the term is, there's no pocket or pool of funding to help in that situation. So if that medical situation causes you to lose your home because you can no longer pay your mortgage, there's no public funding to help in that situation.
Wow. Another reader question, and you brought this up a little bit, Jack. Are there other areas of the country that are experiencing poverty who have done things, who are at this moment leaders, and what can we take from them? What can we learn from them? You guys mentioned the Safe Lot, which I know you're a big fan of. Talk a little bit about what could be done that we've seen work elsewhere.
Oh, absolutely. There are. All you need to do is Google it, and you'll find that there's some communities that just do not accept homelessness at all. That they say that they'll meet homelessness at wherever they are in that stage, and whether it's we'll get people that drive up to our office in Reading, and they're living in their car, and there's a mother and 2 children, and that's it. They no longer have a roof over their heads, and they come in and they're asking for assistance. They're doing their coordinated entry. We're doing our first collection of information from them. But when they leave that little meeting, they're going back and they're living in their car. There's no safe place for them to be. And there's other areas of a best practice that have safe parking lots where we could say, listen, go to this location. It's fenced in. It's secure. You won't be hassled. You won't be moved along or shuffled along by municipal authorities. It'll be safe. You can stay there tonight. You can stay there for a couple nights until your situation is rectified. There's a place for you to go to the bathroom. There's a place for you to wash. There's a place for you to do your clothes. There's a place for you to connect to other services. When I say this is just one example. This is just one tool that we don't have that we do need. And the way I look at it is, why not? Why don't we have that? It's being done. It's being done in Lancaster County. It's being done in areas all around the country. It's just not being done necessarily a lot in the Northeast. But it should be done. It should be here. It should be done in multiple places in Berks County. Somebody that's coming out of the Boyertown School District, right, and is homeless tonight, they're not necessarily going to want to come to Warnersville to go to a safe parking lot. They stay closer to their home. They stay closer to where their frame of reference is, where they're knowledgeable about, where they know the restaurants or the stores or school. Right? They're not, and if they lost that financial situation, that they lost that roof over their heads, they don't have a lot of gas money either to be going all the way out to Wernersville and coming back the next morning to transport back to school. And these are the concerns. These are human beings, right? These are children in those back seats. And not only being pushed along from authorities by saying, well, you can't park here, you can't stay here, but what about the others if they're in a situation where they're being robbed or someone's seeing a way to be victimize them? It's just that we should have a safe parking lot.
Okay.
Point blank.
Melissa, I wanted to chat with you a little bit. We have talked about this off camera a little bit about some of the efforts that your organization is undertaking right now involving college for students.
Sure.
Can you speak a little bit about what you guys are doing?
Sure. Getting these kids not just graduating from high school, but what their future plans are has been a big push with our organization. And that could be college, it could be career, it could be technical school, whatever that is. But right now, we're trying to give these kids access to seeing what it'd be like to go on to college. So we're hoping to work with the younger students, the 9th, 10th, maybe even the 11th grade students, and take them on a college tour and get them out to see some of the big universities and some of the technical schools and some of the options that are out there. So right now we're hoping to do a trip in June that would take them down to Millersville University overnight.
Go Marauders.
Oh yes, and have a visit at Thaddeus Stevens, which is a wonderful technical college, and stop over at Elizabethtown College. We were hoping to go out to University Park, but due to some funding constraints, we have to put that part on hold. So it's just going to be a one-night trip, and we're hoping that with some extra funding that we can expand that to not just a certain number of students. We'd like to bring more students and make it more colleges that they can see. We think that if they actually, at a younger age, get to be on a college campus, get the feel for what it's like to live in a dorm, go to the dining room, sit in on a classroom experience, talk to the financial aid department, and see that maybe college is actually an option for them. We think that possibly this will help end the cycle that they and possibly their families have been in, and get them out of that homeless situation.
And a lot of the colleges are recognizing that there's a subset in their, right? That
Yes.
homeless children coming into their colleges are facing other challenges.
And they might
Yes.
need additional supports, I imagine.
Yes. Well, we just did a college forum out at Penn State Harrisburg, and brought in about 200 people from universities, high schools, and community agencies, all to discuss how to support these kids and get them to reach graduation.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we're almost out of time, or do we have a question
We
quick?
have one question.
We have one question quick from someone on Facebook.
Is there a plan in place for organizing private organizations to provide shelter for homeless families during snowstorms?
Okay, the question is there a
Plan in place.
Is there a plan in place for private funding for shelter in, it would be Code Blue when it gets cold, snowing? I know that some of the shelters open up for Code Blue, but is there any sort of plan in place or any ideas about, possibly expanding that to give more opportunity for people to get off the street when it's bad weather?
Okay, so the question really is families, which is a very difficult subset of the population, whether it's a snowstorm or not,
Sure.
to try to keep a family unit together. So Family Promise, which is an organization based in Berks County, attacks this. We have some shelters at the Coalition for intact homeless families. We have some shelters for homeless intact veteran families. But to answer the question, there are people, there are organizations talking about and planning for or fundraising for expansion of services. And one of the expansions of the services are for homeless families to keep them intact, keep them together, and then to connect them to services coming out of a shelter. So Code Blue for families is very, very difficult, because right now, even though Code Blue is really technically over in Berks County, homeless individual men can go to Hope Rescue Mission. Homeless individual women can go to the Opportunity House. Opportunity House would accept a homeless woman with a child under the age of 13.
Mm-hmm.
But now, after that, is the question: what about those families and where the children is 15 and 16 and,
Sure.
and possibly whether the husband and wife are still together? Where do they go? So we don't have the perfect answer, the perfect solution for it, but we are working on it.
Okay. Any other Facebook questions? Nope. All right. Well, then, as I was saying before that last question, we're nearing the end of our time today, so I'd like to thank Jack and Melissa for joining us, and BCTV for hosting us. And I'd like to thank you all for watching. Hopefully this is something that we're going to continue to follow up on. I know Jack and I had a conversation about some possible news down the road here that we might be reporting on. So thank you all, and thank you for watching.